My name is Brad Blazar, and I'd like to welcome everybody to this afternoon's call. Today, we're going to talk about something that I am truly passionate about because I believe once you learn how to do this, if you're a business owner, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a real estate investor, like I know most of us here, this is going to become your new superpower. And that is largely simply raising capital. It's learning how to attract, how to speak to, and how to close investor capital from high net worth individuals. Because real estate, as we all know, is a capital intensive business. We need capital in our real estate business in order to be successful. So, the first thing I'd like everybody to do in chat is tell me, number one, are you currently working with investors in your business? If you're currently working with investors in your business, please just put in chat yes or no so that I, as the speaker and presenter, have an idea how many of you are actually working with investors today in your business. If y'all could do that for me, I would really, really appreciate that. Danny says yes. Fantastic. Great. Eric says yes. Cassandra says yes. A lot of people that are currently working with investors in their business, which is fantastic. Well, today, what I want to do is I want to empower you and really give you some tools so that if you're currently raising money from investors, you can take your capital raising to a whole nother level. If you're not raising money and you would like to be doing so, I want to give you a couple things as well so that you can also take your capital raising to a whole new level. Before we get started, though, I've got a couple of giveaways. I want you all to be empowered, and so I want to talk about a couple of tools that I have available that all of you can reach out and get immediately. Number one, my book, Winning at the Capital Game, was just released and is now available on Amazon.com. This book goes into detail how to pitch, how to attract, what to say to investors. There's a picture of the cover, and this literally was just released over this weekend. It is my third book, and for those of you that are interested, it is now available on Amazon called Winning at the Capital Game. So definitely want to take a look for that. The other book that many of you might want to get is this one called On the Wings of Eagles, Learning to Soar in Life. This book is also on Amazon. It's also available in Kindle. And this book about a year ago was actually rated as the #1 read for young entrepreneurs by a major literary blog over in the United Kingdom. And so this is really a fantastic book for anybody that is an entrepreneur that wants to learn secrets of success. I interview a lot of people to write this book. And like I said, it was the #1 book for young entrepreneurs. So let's talk about raising money. Let's talk about raising capital. Before we get started, there's a couple of myths that I would like to largely dispel about raising capital. A lot of people that want to raise money never get started. And one of the biggest myths, or one of the biggest things that I'd like to dispel, is number one, age and experience have very little, if anything, to do about your success or your ability to raise money. And I largely know that because when I started raising capital in large amounts of money, I was doing it as a 23-year-old that had dropped out of college, had started an oil company without ever having drilled an oil well, without absolutely no prior experience. And I simply used the skills that I was taught that I'm going to share with you today. And I built a sizable oil company with 35 employees, raising millions of dollars a month with drilling programs in Texas, Oklahoma, and Louisiana. So I know what I'm going to talk about works. Fast forward to today, I've raised over $2 billion in investor capital, largely through my efforts and the efforts of teams I've led. I've been the president, national sales director for a lot of very large real estate syndication firms. And today we practice what I preach because my partner Paul and I have a multifamily company where we raise capital through a fund. And we use the money we raise from investors to look at and invest in multifamily properties. So today, what I want to get started with is the understanding that most people that invest with you will never do so unless you do two things. And it all starts with trust, and it all starts with understanding to raise investor capital. You need to focus first on the investor, yourself, and build a relationship. So the first thing I like to write down on your paper is it starts with trust. Understanding that concept and the fact that nobody will ever invest with you until you build trust is one of the keys in learning how to be successful at raising money from high net worth individuals and private investors. The biggest mistake that I see when I talk to people that have tried to raise money and have either given up or are raising money but are really floundering and finding it very difficult to do so is they're rushing the process. They're moving too quickly. And so, what I'd like to do is share my screen with you all and kind of walk you through some slides that I want to talk about today. The first thing I want to cover today is something called the trust sequence. If you understand this principle that nobody will invest with you until you build and develop trust, the question then becomes, how do I build trust? How do I know somebody trusts me enough to actually invest? And so I like to recommend a wonderful book. It's called The Trust Sequence. And this book is available on Amazon. You can find it there. It's called The Trust Economy, and it's written by a gentleman named Philippe DeConer. And inside the trust economy, Philippe talks about this thing called the trust sequence. The are basically six things that have to happen sequentially for you to build trust in another person. And when I first picked up this book and I read this, it was like a revelation. It was like a big aha moment for me because I realized that what he was talking about tied in to what I've been doing for 20 years, raising hundreds of millions of dollars. And here's what I want you to notice. As you look at these six steps that notice the first three steps are proactive. That means you're doing the work, you're being proactive. And the last three are reactive, meaning that it's the prospective investor, it's the person that you're talking to that's going to be doing the work. So let's look at each step and break this down for you. To build trust with a prospective investor, it all starts with perception. It all starts with the introduction that you're going to make with that other person. And this comes down literally to everything: how you dress, what you say, the quality of your presentation materials, the pitch. Everything you do is tied to perception, because that investor that you're approaching, that investor that you're talking to, is largely deciding in their mind whether there's ever going to be a second date. Ladies, you know what I'm talking about. Many of you have probably been out on dates where you're wondering, is there ever going to be a second date? But that's largely what's going in the mind of a prospective investor. They're sizing you up. And so you want to spend a lot of time stepping back and looking at yourself, your profile. How do you look on Instagram? How do you look on Facebook, LinkedIn, those platforms that you're going to be using to source and raise capital? Because we're going to talk about next how to attract investor interest. Then you want to look at your offering materials. When you send something to somebody, is it of high quality? Is it in color? All of those things create a perception in the mind of a prospective investor. You with me there? Make sense? Great. So, as you're building this relationship and trust through conversations or personal meetings or maybe Zooms, you're going to get now to stage two. And this is what we call temptation. This is a very important stage in getting people to invest with you. Temptation is it is what is largely going to inspire that person to invest with you. And the way that you uncover temptation as you're building trust is by asking a lot of questions. You want to become a really, really good fact finder because the better fact finder you become, the more successful you will be at raising investor capital. And so, what I have when I'm talking to investors is a list of 25 questions that I just print off that I have right by me. So when I'm on the phone or I'm doing a Zoom, I know what to be asking. And they're simple questions like, Ray, when you invest, are you looking for income or are you looking for growth? Or perhaps are you looking for both? Joanne, when you invest, how important are tax benefits to you? Catherine, when you invest, are you looking to do something special with this money, like put some children through college or maybe save for a second home or a vacation property? You see, all of these questions that I'm asking people are going to allow me to uncover what is ultimately going to drive them to an emotional decision to then invest with me. It might be a simple question as well, like, you know, have you ever invested in real estate inside your retirement account? Would that be of interest to you? So that when there's a sale, you can defer the capital gains. All of these things focus on one thing, and that is helping you uncover and learn what that temptation is in the mind of that potential investor. The third step usually does not take place until the second meeting or the second telephone call or the second Zoom. We call it connection. For somebody to trust you, you have to build an emotional connection. In other words, you have to build a relationship. This is usually the stage where you're going to start noticing that that prospect or that potential investor asks to be a friend on Facebook, or they start following you on Instagram and you start seeing that they're commenting or they're giving you, thumbs up and things like that on your posts. You're going to see on LinkedIn, they've asked to connect with you there. This is a very important stage because it leads next to the most important one, which is validation. But if you take away one key thing today from this presentation, understand this. When people invest with you, they're making an emotional decision. You see, our brain has two sides. And a lot of psychologists and a lot of people that study the mind have written about this. There's an analytical side to our brain, and there's an emotional side to our brain. When you're talking to people and you're building trust and you're talking and building a relationship, you want to be appealing to the emotional side of the brain and be building that connection because that ultimately is what's going to lead people to invest with you. They're not going to invest because they've done a tremendous analysis or a due diligence on the deal. Yeah, that's an important part. They're investing in you. They're investing in your confidence. They're investing in your ability to show them that you can execute on a strategy. So spend time on this connection part of the process, asking questions to uncover the temptation of why they want to invest to build that trust, build that relationship. Now we get to the most important part. This now is step four. We call this validation. You don't want to pitch or present or talk about an investment opportunity with somebody until they trust you. Because if you do that, you're pitching too prematurely in the process. And while that prospect might be cordial and nice and shake their head and ask you to send the materials, at the end of the day, when it comes time to writing a check or wiring money, slim chance, more than likely, it's not going to happen. And the reason is you have not validated that they trust you enough to begin the process of talking about an investment opportunity with them. So, wouldn't it be wonderful if there was a way to validate trust with just one sentence or one thing you can ask? And the beautiful thing is, there is. And so I want to give you today a line that I have used now for the last 20 years to close hundreds of millions of dollars in investor capital, because the line does one thing: it validates trust. And more importantly, it uses a very powerful tool in sales called the takeaway that basically motivates and inspires that person to do something that they emotionally want to do. For all of you that have read books on sales, closing strategies, many of you perhaps know that what we call the takeaway close is one of the strongest and most compelling closers use. And so this line that I'm about to give you uses that, and it validates trust. And this is how I always end my second calls or my second meetings or my second Zooms with a prospective investor. It goes something like this: Joanne, I've really enjoyed getting to know you and learning a little bit about you over the last couple of meetings. But I just got to let you know right now, I unfortunately just don't have an investment opportunity that I can talk to you about. I wish I did, but the reason I don't is because we always like to give our existing investors the right of first refusal on all of our ensuing programs. And as a result, they tend to fill up real quickly. Let me ask you though, would you like me to put your name on a list? So in the event I have an opening or a small allocation at some point in the future on something that I think might be of interest, I can simply reach out and give you a call. And when they say yes, they have validated they trust you. You see, I did two things there. I gave Joanne the perception that she might never hear from me again. Why? Because I've got investors that are happy, that are investing with me, and I don't know when I might have an opportunity to present. So that's a little bit of a takeaway. The second thing, though, is I said, would you like me to call you back if I do have an investment or I have something that I think might be of interest? And when she said yes, she did something very important for me there. She validated, she trusts me. So, what do you think I do? I make a little note in my CRM or where I'm tracking my funnel on all my prospective investors. And then I call her back 7, 10 days later. And after spending a couple of minutes warming up and asking about the weather and what she's done since we last chatted, I say, the reason I wanted to reach out today, Joanne, is if you remember the last time we spoke, you asked me to put your name on a list. I'm just going down my list of people today, and it just so happens I have a small opening, a small allocation on a great deal we're working on. It's beachfront property in Naples, Florida. And if you got a few minutes, I'd love to tell you about it. And that's when you pitch. Usually I pitch on the third call with people. If it's a referral where it's a warmer relationship, I might do it a little earlier. But usually I spend the first and the second meeting or call building that relationship, getting to know that person, finding out if what I do is suitable. And then I ask that same question, and I've memorized it. And I'm going to say it again. Joanne, I've really enjoyed getting to know you over the last couple of calls or meetings. But right now, unfortunately, I just don't have an investment opportunity that I can talk to you about. I wish I did, but I just don't. The reason is we always like to give our existing investors the right of first refusal. And as a result, our programs tend to fill up pretty quickly. Would you like me just simply to put your name on a list and maybe give you a call back if I have an opening or small allocation at a later date? Then I just wait. She says yes. Boom. Validate trust. Go on to the next step. Call number three is the pitch. Now, in the pitch or the presentation, you've got to do a couple things here, folks. And the analogy that I give is you are the executive movie producer of a major motion picture. Okay. I mean, you're on stage, you're pitching, you've got to be confident, you've got to exude confidence, you've got to be excited about your deal, you've got to be passionate about what you're doing. You really need to try to convince this person that you've got something special. So, how do you do it? Number one, FOMO. Now, many of you don't know what FOMO is. FOMO stands for the fear of missing out. FOMO, FOMO. Man, we see a window of opportunity in the multifamily space, and we know it's not going to be there forever. And we've identified a very unique opportunity to capitalize on this. Or if you're doing something else, you create some excitement that basically in the mind of that investor creates a sense of urgency. But the other thing that's very, very important when you're pitching or you're presenting to an investor is you have to basically focus on three things. The first is who we are, who I am. Here's my team. Okay. Now, for many of you that are what I call a solopreneur, that means that you're doing your real estate business by yourself. You don't have a company around you. How do you build that team? How do you convince an investor that you've got the depth in your organization to be a fiduciary and to handle their money wisely? Well, you go to your attorney and you say, hey, I'm starting a fund or I'm going to start the process of raising capital. Can I use you as an advisor? Can I just, use your name? You're my attorney. Same thing with your accountant. You say, hey, can I put you down as an advisor to our fund so that my potential investors know you're going to be the guy like doing the tax reporting, sending out the K1s. And so when you put your presentation together, now you've got their information. You're building depth. Maybe you reach out to someone like me who's raised $2 billion and say, Brad, can I use you as an advisor? I'm the advisor now to 5 companies where they have my picture in their deck and they say he's a strategic advisor on raising capital. I'm happy to do that for anybody on the call. The next thing you want to focus on is what we do. What's your message? And this is a very important process. I always ask people when I interview them, like, what can you do for me? And they say, well, I'm a really nice person, or I'm really smart, or I had good grades. That's not what you can do for me. See, one thing I've learned in business, folks, is skills and talent are what make money. And so what you have to be able to communicate in your pitch or in your presentation is one thing that's very important. I want you to write this down. Investors do not invest in great ideas. Let me say that again. Investors do not invest in great ideas. I learned this from Shark Tank's Kevin Harrington, who was a speaker at my event. He said, Brad, on Shark Tank, we hear thousands of ideas, and some people get funded and others don't. What we invest in as investors are great ideas that can be executed on by good people. You see the difference? You can have the greatest idea in the world, but if you can't convince me as an investor that you can execute on that, you're not going to be successful getting my hard-earned investment dollars. But if you've got a good idea or you got a good deal and you convince me that you got the knowledge or you got a team that can execute, then you got my attention. So now we get through validation with that question, and we get now to the pitch, the presentation. You're showing them what you're doing with a pitch deck. Something good hopefully is going to happen. And that's when the prospective investor is going to say something like, well, what are the next steps? Or how do I get involved? or like, what happens next? And if they don't say that, you have to take control and you need to ask for the investment, because attachment is when they're physically going to invest with you. This is where capital exchanges hands. And usually, after I answer questions and I go through the deal, I ask for the investment. And the way that I've asked for the investment is very precise. There's some psychology behind this. What I've learned is that when you give somebody the ability and the option to say no, 9 out of 10 times they won't say no. They'll say yes. So here's my close on how I've raised millions of dollars. Jeff, now that I've answered all your questions, we've talked about the deal. How many units in the offering would you like? 1 unit, 2 units, 3 units, or no units? And then I bite my tongue. And it might seem like an eternity for some of you until that person speaks, because they're thinking, they're digesting. And usually, what happens next is magic. They'll say something like, well, tell me, how much are 2 units in your program? And that's when I say, do me a favor, get the subscription document that was part of the package I sent. I'll walk you through the paperwork. We'll get everything filled out, and I'd love to welcome you aboard. You see, I don't tell them it costs $60,000 or $100,000. I go straight from the question, well, tell me, how much are 2 units in the program to get the paperwork? Let's start filling that out as part of the process. And as part of the process, I'll tell you how much 2 units are. And if we find out that 2 units are a little bit too much, I can always downsell to 1 unit. And so that's a very, very powerful closing strategy to close your capital partners. It's by asking and giving the option of an out. How many shares or how many units would you like? 1 unit, 2 unit, 3 units, or no units. And then you go right to filling out paperwork. Now, once they're invested, stuff has to happen. You need to send out a confirmation of their investment, or a welcome package, as we like to call it. You need to build expectations and tell your investment partner what's going to happen next. Now that you've invested with us, Ray, let me tell you what happens next. You're going to get a welcome letter. I'd like to welcome you aboard as a capital partner with our firm, 5 Star Capital. We have a quarterly newsletter that you'll be getting every quarter to update you on your investment, how it's performing. We'll send you an annual report at the end of the year. We also have webinars that you can become part of as well, where we're speaking to our investor base. And at the end of the year, of course, you'll get your tax reporting information that is done by our accountant. And that's usually in the form of a K-1 or a 1099, depending on the structure of your deal. Do you have any questions? Never close an investor without taking care of this very important part of the process, which is building expectations, because you don't want a rescission. You don't want the investor, when you hang up or when you're done meeting a day or two later, to think they made a mistake because you didn't close properly and then call you and say, hey, I really would like to get my money back. Okay, don't open that up. Close properly, build expectations. Because if you do that, you get to stage 6 in the trust sequence. We call this affiliation. Your investment partners, your investors want to see you become massively successful. That's why they're investing with you. And so if you do this properly, you get to affiliation, which is where they want to refer you to their friends and their family and people that they have affluence over. Hey, this is my golf buddy, Joe. He makes a lot more money than I do. Or, hey, this is my partner. Or, hey, I'm a doctor. These are the other physicians that work in my practice. So when you have affiliation in your business, it is a wonderful thing, because now it becomes easier to raise capital. You see, now you're getting warm referrals from other people. and your capital raising business can scale. Your capital raising business can grow. You can really take it to the next level. So remember, slow down the process of building trust and relationship. Do not pitch your deal to the third meeting or the third call or the third Zoom. Spend the first two building that rapport, building that trust. Validate trust using the takeaway and then ask for the investment. Now that we've covered that, let me cover a couple other things. Here's a couple steps to raise massive amounts of money. The first thing is you got to define your target audience. Like who are we going after? Now, for many of you that are flipping, wholesaling, rehabbing, where you're trying to pick up checks for 20, 50, 60,000 to do a deal, you can define your list as high net worth accredited investors. Many of you might be at a stage like we are where you're like, I've raised a few million, I've done deals, Brad. I want to take my capital raising to a whole nother level. Like, I want to start working with family offices. I want to be picking up checks for a million, 5 million bucks like you. That's fine. Define that audience, and I can show you how to get into the family office space. Some of you might want to put together a large fund and raise 25 or 50 million. To do that, you need a different type of capital partner. And the great thing is, because I've done all of it, I can teach you how to do it too. So the first thing is define your audience. Now, for those of you that don't have an access to a list, don't live in a country club like I do, guess what? You can buy a list. That's right. There are actually companies that for $500 or $600 will sell you a list of high net worth accredited investors. And this becomes now your database. And the way these lists largely are driven is by zip code. They focus on the most affluent pockets of wealth where you live. So now you can host investor events, networking events, those types of things. So if you need a list, reach out to me and I'll introduce you to Tony, my partner, and he'll turn you on to the list company that we've used for many years to drive our investor events. The second, you got to warm up your audience. So when I say warm up the audience, we do this through outreach. Email campaigns work great. The other is social media. With the Jobs Act that was passed in 2012, they loosened their restrictions tremendously to promote and stimulate, of course, small business growth. So today, it's easier than it's ever been to raise money. You can advertise. I mean, literally, you could drop leaflets from airplanes. Hey, we're looking for investors. You can get a billboard on Times Square. Hey, we're looking for investors. That's why you see a lot on Facebook, a lot of these big real estate companies posting, click here, learn more. They're advertising for investors. Or, hey, join us next week for our webinar on the tax advantages of multifamily real estate. All of the people that register are potential investors. So begin the process of warming up an audience through outreach. Now, once you start doing that, you need to then follow up with what I call an investor package or an investor kit. An investor kit or an investor package is made up of basically three things. Number one, a one-page investment summary, front and back. Who we are, what we do, a very abbreviated overview of the opportunity. One page, front and back. We call it a teaser. The second thing is you need your PowerPoint, your pitch deck. This is how you're going to communicate and show prospective investors what you do. And then thirdly, you need your memorandum or your executive summary. This usually has things like an operating agreement, subscription paperwork, yada yada. And this typically is if you're raising a fund or you're raising a few million. If you're just doing a smaller deal or you're doing a note, kind of like an IOU, there it's more of a business plan, maybe an executive summary, but we can guide you on those things. But you need to put together what I call your offering package. And down in the bottom of the slide here, you can see some representations of what an offering package largely looks like. So you send these out to people that express interest that are accredited investors. Then you close, you get some capital, and all you do is you repeat the process. You say, next, Who's interested? Here's the offering, close them, and you repeat the process. And this is the process that my company and I have used literally to raise millions and millions of dollars. The other thing you can do is host networking events for investors. Facebook is a great way. Eventbrite, Meetup. You can buy a list of a couple thousand affluent households like we do and use companies like White Glove or Leading Response that literally will print the invitations, send them out for you bulk mail to save you money. And for, $1,500, $2,000, you can host a very elegant networking event, country club, or a nice restaurant, but you want to make sure you avoid plate liquors. So how do you avoid plate liquors? You don't do a big expensive dinner like other people do. I've seen companies spend thousands on big lavish dinners at steakhouses. You don't need to do that. Promote your event as a multi-family networking event. Hors d'oeuvres, we're going to have some wine, some beer. And so what you do with the restaurant or what you do with the venue is you just say, we would just like some nice high top tables. We'd like some lower tables for the older folks that would like to sit down as well. But focus on calling it a social networking event, but definitely have some hors d'oeuvres, have some wine, and work the room. And then after 30 minutes, clang a glass, get everybody's attention, focus their attention to a screen. You're going to give a nice 20, 25-minute overview, PowerPoint presentation, answer some questions for the audience, etc. And then you're going to follow up and continue to network. And here's what I'll tell you. By doing these types of events, these investor events, as I call them, when you follow up on the back end, what you'll find is you can raise $1 million, $2 million, $3 million. All depends on who's in the room. And the great thing is you don't know who those people are connected with that they can then introduce you to. So start doing events, start bringing groups of people together. Now, the other type of events that I do that work really well are what I call lifestyle events. Here's what I've learned. By hosting events, the real wealthy whales, the big rich people, they typically don't go to those types of events. Why? Because financial advisors are doing these all over the country. They've received invitations for stuff like this. But if I sent you an invitation, I said, hey, come join me and a bunch of other rich people behind the wheel of a Lamborghini or a Ferrari, or hey, you want to go out on a private yacht excursion, or hey, you want to join us at a polo event, that's where the big money comes out. So what we do in my business is we create what we call lifestyle events. I'll go to my country club and I'll talk to the golf pro and I'll say, hey, I want to host a golf outing in a couple weeks. I want 3 pros. I'm going to break the group up into 4 different groups. We're going to have lunch. That's what we're going to present on the screen in the club when we all come off the 9th hole. We go out and we play 9 holes. We have a great time. Or if there's a polo event in town, I'll get a tent. I'll bring people in. We'll do polo. Or we'll do an exotic car event with one of the exotic car clubs around the country. See, these types of what I call lifestyle events bring out the big money people because now they're having fun. You're combining something that you're passionate about, that you enjoy, with something that they're passionate about, and you're building that relationship. And out of that comes great things. So look at incorporating what I call these network lifestyle events into your business as well. Now, let's talk about another element that's also very important, and that is social media. Use webinars, use posts to generate interest. You can advertise today for investor capital as long as the investors are accredited investors. That means that they have an earned income of $200,000 a year in the 2 most recent years, or they have a net worth of $1 million, excluding their personal residence. As long as they're accredited, you can be advertising LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Use those profiles to generate that interest. Follow up with people that expressed interest, make sure they're accredited, and you're off to the races. Now, the last thing I want to talk about here is something that I call the 4-step sales blueprint. The 4-step blueprint for my team has become a script. And that script largely is built around 4 calls. or 4 Zooms or 4 meetings, because the first 2 meetings or the first 2 Zooms are all about the prospect. We're building trust. We're asking questions. We're making sure the investment is suitable. We're not pitching. We're disarming and we're adding massive value, teaching them about multifamily, talking to them about cost segregation, how we're able to shelter more of the income. Then, the end of the second call, we validate, we ask permission for that third meeting. We're using that psychology. And when the door opens on that third call or that third meeting, we're pitching. And then on the fourth, we're closing, we're asking for capital. And the great thing about this 4-step system is it works. It works like magic. And so I'd like to make that available to all of you. I'm going to offer basically our PDF guide that is called Securing an Investment. This guide's roughly 20 pages and it unpacks this. And if you'd like to get this guide for free, all you have to do is send my team an email and we will send you basically this free guide called Securing an Investment that breaks down how to pitch, how to put together your pitch deck, what investors look for, how to use the 4-step script. All of those things are in this guide and it's yours for free. All you have to do is basically send an email to info, I-N-F-O, info at bradblazar.com. Okay, it's info, I-N-F-O at bradblazar.com. I'm going to go ahead and put it in here at the chat. And if you just say, send me the guide, we will send that off to you later today. And it's my free gift to all of you just for holding yourself accountable and being present on the call and participating here with us today. So the 4-step process is call number 1, building trust, disarming. Hey, this is Brad Blazar, 5-Star Capital. The reason I'm calling today is to see if you have an interest in multifamily investments that provide income, growth, tax benefits, and more importantly, preservation of capital. That's my opening line. I don't care what they say next because I've been doing this long enough. And here's what I'll tell you. 9 out of 10 times, if it's a cold call, the answer is I'm not interested. But see, that's what separates me and most everybody else. I expect that answer and I'm prepared for it. How many of you have gone into a store looking for something and the clerk walks up to you and they say, hi, can I help you today? And you say, no, just looking, thank you. And they walk away. You're not looking, you're in the store for something. You're there for a reason, right? So if you expect to get the answer, I'm not interested, where most salespeople would hang up the phone and just go to the next person and get another next interested, and then another not interested, and then another not interested, and eventually give up on raising money, which really is not that hard to do. You expect that. And before the person hangs up, just like a door-to-door salesman that sticks their foot in the door, you say very quickly, let me just ask you a question before I let you go. The reason you said you weren't interested, is it perhaps because you had invested in something like this before and it didn't work out the way you thought it would? They're going to give you the answer. Then you're going to come right back with another question. You see, and literally, I've taken people, folks, that have said they weren't interested, and I've kept them on the phone for 20 or 30 minutes. It's amazing how people will open up immediately to you once they realize you're not trying to sell them anything. Once you disarm them and say, hey, I'm not calling to sell you anything today. We're a real estate private equity firm. We help people lower their taxes through real estate passively. And I would just love to send you some information on us and explain who we are and what we do. But you see, I answer questions by disarming. And when I send out a little piece of information to the person, it sets me up to call them back on call number 2, checking in, answering questions, building trust, using my questions, asking, validating on the very last part of that call, leads me now to offer the opportunity. Call number 3. I went down my list. You asked me to call you back. Got a great deal. Call allocation. I'd love to tell you about it. and that's millions and millions of dollars. And you just repeat the process. Now, let's talk about the last hour. Hopefully, most of you would agree that it's been time well spent. You've learned a little bit about the four-step process. You've learned about the trust economy, how you have to slow down the process. You've learned how to validate trust by asking just one question. You've learned how to ask for the capital commitment, 1 unit, 2 units, 3 units, or no units by providing the out. But I want to be honest with you guys. I can't teach you everything you need in an hour on how to raise hundreds of thousands or let alone millions of dollars. It would take literally a couple of days or perhaps a week to really learn everything I know about raising capital. Also, on how to launch a fund. For any of you here that want to launch a real estate fund and learn how to do it and set it up properly, learn how to create your Reg D document, learn how to put together your private placement memorandum, learn how to create your LLCs, that's what we do. So I have a special offer for all of you here. If you really want to learn how to raise capital. Number one, like I said earlier, if you send an email to us, info@bradblazar.com, you will get the free guide, Securing an Investment. Okay, that's my gift to you today for free. Also, like I said, if you go to Amazon, you'll find my newest book, my third book, At the Capital Game. Great investment, real hacks, how to raise capital. But we have a program that some of you might be interested in to really take your capital raising to a whole nother level. And we call it Capital School. Capital School is an entire 3-month program, okay, built around 12 modules, 12 courses that are focused on teaching you how to raise money from high net worth investors so that you can build, buy, or scale a business or fund a special project like real estate. Here's what's included. You get a live weekly training call. We go live every Thursday afternoons at 5. Bring on guest speakers. We role play. We have students in 7 countries today around the world: the UK, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, Latin America. So we have a live weekly training call. This is where I'm holding your hand and I'm really teaching and coaching. The second is we have 12 courses or 12 modules that are hosted online in a self-paced program with videos, with guides, with scripts, with templates. All of that is designed to walk you through this 12, to teach you how to put together your fund, how to do all of these things. We're going to talk to you about crowdfunding, how to use some of these crowdfunding platforms to get securities offerings, Reg A, Reg D, the difference, how you can use one to your advantage. Then we're going to talk to you about how to get into family offices, how to take your capital raising to a whole new level, how to get larger checks, larger capital partners. And then for many of you, you might have an interest in putting together a fund and literally building infrastructure and starting a capital raising business like we have. And that requires knowing how to go out and get broker dealers, build relationships with financial advisors, do all of those types of things. So imagine getting access to all of this, learning how to raise capital, learning how to raise a few $100,000 or perhaps $1 million. Now on the screen, if you look at the upper left corner, the large property that's right above Honeycomb Salon, that's a property that I'm currently in right now. We just got back from our property management inspection, walked the property. It's 11.5 million. Need to raise about 2.8 million. But those are the types of deals you see that we're doing because I've mastered and learned how to attract and raise investor capital. So what's included? You got the live weekly training calls. You got access to the online enrollment area. We talk about the 4-step blueprint. We go into videos, scripts, template. You're going to see samples of investor packages. We're going to show you how to put together your pitch deck, your investment package, save you thousands of dollars if you actually want to create your own offering memorandum. We give you templates on how to do those as well. And unbundle the coaching and sell it to your retail, it'd be close to $9,000 in value. Now, this has worked for most real estate entrepreneurs. This has worked for business owners that want to buy e-commerce business or SaaS companies. But here's what I'll tell you. It takes effort and it takes a little bit of action. Unfortunately, money doesn't just show up in wheelbarrows. I wish it did. I wish it was that easy. But if you want to learn how to raise money, you do have to put forth some effort, take the knowledge, and practice. And if you do that, I promise you will have success as a capital raising expert. It'll become your new superpower. Now, in addition, I'm going to give you two bonuses. I'm going to give you one bonus, which is a workbook called How to Keep People on the Phone. This is a workbook that is worth literally thousands of dollars because that is the secret. And then I'm going to give you access to another workbook called Getting into the Big Leagues. Okay. Everything together, you're looking at roughly $13,000. Today, I'm going to offer it to you as a special. What would one investor or two investors be worth to you? If I, over the course of 3 months, could show you how to get $250,000 in investor capital, or how to find two partners that were giving you $50,000, $100,000, how much would it be worth to get that knowledge so you could repeat the process and get to a point like some of my students that are now raising $500,000 a month, or get to a point where you're raising $3 million a year? You can get today for as little as $1,027. We give people 3 payment options. You can either pay up front, $27.97. You save about $300 if you make a payment. You can pay twice, 2 payments spaced 30 days apart, or you can get started and have immediate access for as little as $1,027. After that, there's no monthly dues, there's no annual membership fees, and the best part about it is it's lifetime access. You have 3 months of coaching, okay, every week, live coaching calls, but you have lifetime access to our Facebook community, and you have lifetime access to what we call the Capital Toolkit. This is where all the lessons, all of the content, all of the courses are hosted so that you can always go back to that and use it as a resource. So there's the website right below, www.bradblazar.com/capital school. Now, you guys get 2 choices. You can do nothing and not take this leap of faith, which, by the way, comes with a 100% money back guarantee. Or you could pony up a small investment today compared to all the value that you're going to get and give it a shot. Because if it works, great, you're off to the races. You're going to start learning how to raise capital. And if it's not, or you get into it and you feel it's not what it was meant to be, it comes with a 100% money back guarantee. And it says it right there on the enrollment screen. So if you're interested in learning how to raise money from me and my team, like I told you, I've raised over $2 billion in investment capital. I've raised it from family offices. I've raised it from sovereign wealth funds. I've raised it from broker dealers. I can teach today using the website I just showed you. And like I said, if for any reason it's not what you thought it would be, or you get into it and you realize it's just not the right time, ask for your money back, because we don't want to be coaching or working with anybody unless they have a serious interest and real desire to learn how to raise money, create that as their new superpower, and really learn to take their capital raising business to a whole new level. Now, with that, I want to thank everybody and really just open it up because we have a little bit of time for any questions. So if you have any questions, put in the chat question, or better yet, you can actually use the question feature that they have built into Zoom. And I have time for a couple of questions perhaps today if anybody has a couple of questions. Any questions? Come on, folks, you got to have some questions. Or you can just unmute yourself and ask a question. Eddie, Jeff, Eric, You're trying to tell me I did such a wonderful job. Nobody's got a question today. Well, if nobody's got, let's see, here's a question. Can you go over what's included? Are you talking about what's included in the training and the mentorship? Uh, Absolutely. So, what's included in the training and the mentorship is basically three things. You have a 3 month coaching training program that's built around the weekly call. Okay. So every Thursday, we do a live call. It is recorded. You never miss it. It's available for replay. The second is we have a private members only Facebook group. Inside that group, we have well over 100 active students from around the world: Australia, New Zealand, Canada, the United Kingdom, here in the US, Latin America, Dubai, all learning how to raise money, all investing in other people's deals, all building relationships. So you get access to that private members only Facebook group. The third thing you get is you get access to the online enrollment area. This is where we have the courses. This is where we have the modules. This is where we have the PDF guides, the scripts. Everything is included. You get lifetime access to that as well. In addition, you also get 2 strategy calls with me and my team where we sit down, we look at where you are today, what you want to do, what you need in order to get to the next level. And then what we do, just like any good coach, is we hold your hand and we hold you accountable through that relationship in order to see you have success at what it is you want to do. Then after the 3 months, we have another call. Hey, how's it going? What have you seen as a result of being involved in the coaching? Is there anything else we can do to further the process? Sometimes people want to extend the coaching. That's fine. We have a discount when you renew it to continue that process. So those are the three things that are included as part of the package. Now, another question came up, and that was, have you helped Canadians raise funds to invest in the USA? Absolutely. I'd say probably a third of the students we have are Canadians. They're in Toronto, they're in Ontario. I've got people in Calgary, Alberta, over in Saskatchewan. So the answer is absolutely yes, yes, yes. Just like I said, I got people in Australia, got people in New Zealand, got people in the UK. What we do will work anywhere in the world. Now, what I will tell you is that each country does have different restrictions, different rules as to what you can and cannot do. And so I always advise people, John, to reach out to counsel in their own country as it relates to the securities regulations, but how you attract, what you say, what you show a prospective investor, how you close them, that's the same anywhere you want to go. So great question. Great question. Yes, we've helped Canadians raise funds. And more importantly, we've helped Canadians that have raised money and then use that money to invest in real estate here in the United States. One of our students in Saskatchewan, Edna, raises money from Canadian investors, and then she deploys it and invests in multifamily properties down here in the United States. Any other questions? Wonderful. Well, if not, I want to thank you, everybody, for showing up. There's the website again. I'll actually put it down here again in the chat. And I just want to thank you all for basically being present and showing up today and being part of this training. Learning how to raise money in real estate is really something that for many entrepreneurs has allowed them to really take their capital raising to a whole new level. And when you are able to do that, it really unlocks the door to you doing much, much bigger deals. Whether you want to get into multifamily, whether you want to increase the velocity of what you're wanting to do, it really just allows you to understand that you don't have to be held back. That's the key. I can't tell you how many people I talk to every week that tell me, Brad, I have this dream of starting a business, or I want to do this. And I'm like, well, why aren't you doing it? I don't have the money. And I just smile and I say, you don't need the money. What you need to understand is all the money you need is in the pockets of people sitting right next to you. And once you have that mindset, you're like, wow, I never thought of it that way. You see, here's something that I've learned, folks, the hard way. In school, they don't teach us how to be successful and create wealth and build a legacy. We live in a society where most of us play follow the leader. We do what others have done. We do what our parents have done. Our parents did what their parents did. And so in society and in school, you have millions of people following the masses. And what we're taught is you go to school, you go to college. For those of you that grew up in a family where that was stressed, you get a good paying job or you enter a good paying career. You save a little bit of the money that you hopefully have left over at the end of the month. You put it into a retirement account. And hopefully, if you keep your fingers crossed and you work real hard, someday you'll be able to retire. Why do people work for money? You see, money's a tool, folks. Make your money work for you. Then you never have to work again. And once you understand that very key principle that most people do not know, oh my God, it's a life changer. The second I realized my money was a tool and it was designed to work for me, and I started investing, creating passive income, it unlocked the door to financial freedom. For those of you that have a job where you're showing up every day, every week, working for a paycheck, you're working for money. What you got to do is shift your mindset, start using OPM, and realize money needs to start working for you. I talked to a guy today that signed up for my coaching. He's been following me, Jeremiah. He said, man, I'm an electrician. I do well, but I don't want to be doing this for the next 20 some odd years like my father and my siblings. And I said, dude, 3 to 5 years of hard work in real estate, you're done. I've seen people amass multi-million-dollar fortunes in that short amount of time, and you're done. You've created your legacy. You've got your passive income. You've got your tax benefits that the real estate's going to generate for you. He said, I can do it that quickly. I said, absolutely. I've seen some people do it a lot quicker. So everybody, again, thank you so much. Look for the books. Everybody that reached out to us at info@Blazar will get the PDF, Securing Your Investment. And I see some of you saying, I'm in. Thank you so much for subscribing and joining our coaching. And Linda, thank you so much for putting this on. I was supposed to speak at the event that you guys just recently had. And as I explained to Linda, I unfortunately was diagnosed with a positive COVID test the day before I was supposed to head out. And so I said, Linda, if it was me, I'd be there, but I care about the safety and the health of other people. And she was polite enough to understand and put this together for us today. So everybody have a wonderful, blessed remainder to your week. Have a wonderful Labor Day. And just realize we're here to help you. We're just an email away to hold your hand and get you the knowledge and get you the information you all need. So take care, and everybody have a wonderful day.